Hello and welcome. Today I'm doing a video on the perfect makeup tag. I've seen two people do this tag. The first one I saw was Kayla at Beauty by Kayla K, and I just thought it was such a great video and she had such great choices. If you haven't watched her channel, I'm gonna link her below. She has awesome taste in makeup and she had such great choices, as I said, for this tag. And then I've also watched Samantha Izindu's video on this tag and I love her channel too. But this tag was actually created by Morgan Turner and Patty Alonso. I haven't watched their versions of this video yet, but I will. But anyway, I've just enjoyed watching the two that I've seen so much. And as I was watching them, I was, thinking, what would my choices be for all of these questions? So I wanted to do my own version of this video. So if you'd like to see that, just keep on watching. All right, so the first question is, which primer creates the perfect base? And I knew immediately that my choice would be the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. I use this every day, whether I'm wearing makeup or not, and I just think it's the perfect primer. I don't really have any interest in trying other primers at this time because I feel like I've found the perfect primer in this. It's kind of like a hybrid between a moisturizer and a primer. So it does add some moisture to the skin. I still use a moisturizer underneath it, but I like to have quite a lot of hydration on my skin. I think if you have less dry skin than I do, you could definitely get away with just using this as your moisturizer and primer in one. It's a really nice hydrated finish. It's not particularly dewy and it's not matte, but it does give this beautiful sort of slight blur and just sort of perfects the texture of your skin a little bit. And it's just the perfect prep for all makeup. I've never had any issues with any makeup not sitting nicely on this. It's just perfect for every type of makeup that I like to wear. And it also has a really lovely scent. It's a grapefruit and geranium scent, I think is what it is. It's just a beautiful, fresh, citrusy with a little bit of very light floral in it. And it's just the perfect primer for me. Next question is, which foundation has the perfect finish? My number one choice is the Sisley Cushion Foundation. It's the Phyto-Blanc Anti-Pollution Foundation. And it's the most beautiful foundation that I've ever worn on my skin. It just perfects the skin. I wouldn't say it's a full-on dewy finish, but it's definitely sort of a radiant, very hydrated looking finish. And it's somehow, I don't know what it does to the skin, but there's just something about it that keeps your skin looking so skin-like and not makeup-y, yet perfected, and it's just perfect. I love it in the shade 2. That's the best shade for my skin tone. It's the cooler toned of the two lighter shades. Now, there are a couple of downsides of this foundation, definitely. One is the shade range. There are only 3 shades, which is just, frankly, kind of pathetic. I mean, it is a pretty sheer light coverage, so it's gonna cover more than just 3 skin tones, but there's no depth in the range at all. And even, I think, medium to tan is going to have a hard time wearing this foundation. So that's a big downside to it. Another downside is the price and the amount of product you get. I think it's only a ½ ounce of product in one of these cushions. It's extremely expensive, definitely the most expensive foundation that I have. And so I really only like to save it for special occasions or if I'm just feeling like I really need a boost and that this is going to really help me out on a particular day. But it is the most perfect looking foundation in my opinion. It's a light coverage, but there's something about it that almost brings it to the effect of a medium coverage in terms of how it perfects the skin, yet it still leaves it looking really natural. An alternative to the Sisley, and the one that I've been really just going to on an everyday basis when I don't want to use the Sisley, is the Makeup Forever Reboot. I think this has some similar qualities to the Sisley. It's a light coverage that can be built up to a medium. It has a little bit of a radiant finish, and it just looks really good on the skin. And one other upside of this one over the Sisley is I find this is a little bit longer wearing as well. So this is an excellent alternative to the Sisley, and I really love the Makeup Forever Reboot foundation. I have it in the shade Y218. The next question is, which concealer has the perfect coverage? Now, most of the products I'll talk about today I'm wearing on my face, but I'm actually wearing a different concealer today. But my choice for the Perfect Coverage Concealer is the Lancôme Idole All Over Concealer. This is it just gives a really nice coverage while looking very seamless on the skin. It leans more toward a matte finish, but I don't really consider it matte. It kind of like gives a little bit of a blur, and it's not shiny, but I don't find it mattifying particularly either. I just think this is a really great and versatile concealer. I'm wearing the Kosas concealer today, which is more dewy because that was just kind of the look that I felt like today. But if I had to just choose one concealer for the perfect coverage, it would be this one. The next question is, which powder gives the perfect blur? And I'm gonna have to go with the Chantecaille Perfect Blur Powder. It now comes in the floral packaging, but I have it with the hummingbird packaging. And I think they've brought it out in sort of a more standard, regular pebble packaging now as well. But in terms of a blurring powder, this is the number one for me. It really does just blur and perfect the face. I'm not wearing this today. I'm actually wearing a different Chantecaille powder, the Éclat Doux, and I was going to choose this for my answer for this question, but I put it on and I realized it doesn't really blur. It just kind of, it sets down a little bit and it gives a really beautiful sort of soft radiant finish, but it's not specifically blurring, whereas the Perfect Blur powder really is. The downside to me for this one is the shade. It's quite yellowy. So it's not really the type of thing that I feel particularly comfortable wearing when my skin is at its palest or when I'm going for a very pale complexion. But in terms of the finish and blurring, this one is really excellent. Now, the next few questions cover bronzer, highlighter, and blush, and I wanted to give a cream and a powder option for each one. So the first one is, which bronzer has the perfect undertone? And my choice is the Tom Ford Terra bronzer because it has a beautiful, cool reddish undertone and it just works really well for my skin. My complaint with this is that it's still a little bit deeper than I would like it to be, but if used with a lighter hand, this is really, really nice. My choice for a cream bronzer with the perfect undertone would be the Salt New York. This is the contour shade. I actually like to mix contour and light in their bronzers together. But if I just had to choose one, it would probably be contour because although it is contour, it does have a little bit of warmth in it at the same time. So for me, it can work really nicely as both a contour and a bronzing shade. The next question is, which blush has the perfect shade? And for my powder blush, I've chosen the Hermes Rose Ombré. This is just such a useful blush for me. It has the perfect shade because it has a little bit of warmth in there, but it also has the coolness and a little bit of sort of shadowiness to it that is really nice. I'm wearing it today. And it's just a perfect shade that kind of will go with everything. And it also really helps me when, for example, if I've put on a bronzer that's looking a little bit too warm on me, this can really save the day because it's not going to pull out any orangey tones in a bronzer. It's just going to kind of counteract them and still add the nice sort of pinkness and freshness that my cheeks need. So that's the Hermes Rose Ombre blush. And then for a cream option, I've chosen the Salt New York Rose blush. This is fabulous. I wear this almost every day if I'm just doing kind of a no makeup look. It's really a great go-to, and it's similar to the Rose Ombre in that it has a beautiful mix of warm and cool in it, and it doesn't ever pull orangey, and it gives me the right amount of pink on my cheeks and life without looking too pink or too bright. And the next question is, which highlighter has the perfect finish? I was kind of going back and forth on this. For my powder, I knew that I would choose the MAC Extra Dimension highlighter. I like the shade Double Gleam. It's just a really beautiful, smooth finish. It's not overly metallic, though it can be built up to get to that level, but you can also apply it more sheerly and it just gives a really beautiful, natural glow. I don't know if you can, yeah, there you can see it. And I've never found that there are really any discernible like glitter, sparkle, shimmer particles in it. I just think it's a really versatile and useful highlighter. For the liquid slash cream version, I was going back and forth between the Auric in Morganite. This is the new version of Morganite. They brought out one that's a little bit lighter and less warm than the original version, which is a perfect shade now. And then my other option was the Lisa Eldridge Elevated Glow. And I was actually going to choose the Auric, and I put it on my face today. And I kind of changed my mind. So I'm gonna go with the Lisa Eldridge. The Auric it's kind of like the MAC Extra Dimension in that it doesn't have any discernible glitter or anything in it, but I do find that it gives more coverage than the Lisa Eldridge. And lately my preference has really just been for a more sheer highlighter application. And because of that preference that I have, the Lisa Eldridge is my choice for today. I actually put a little bit of it on top of the Auric, so I'm wearing both of them today. But the Lisa Eldridge, it really is a very seamless look, and it just has a more sheer quality to it than the Auric. And I do feel that this really does have a very slight lifting and tightening effect to it that is really special and that the Auric doesn't quite have, but both are really gorgeous. And if I had to pick based on shade, the new Morganite shade from Auric is definitely better for me than the Crystal Nebula from Lisa Eldridge, which is rather warm and just a little bit deep for me. It's perfect actually right now for summertime, but I know that in the winter time this is not going to be a very good shade for me, but it's still my choice for the highlighter with the perfect finish. Now the next question is, which lipstick has the perfect formula? And I'm going with another Lisa Eldridge product, big surprise. I'm choosing her Luxuriously Lucent formula. Now I probably wouldn't have chosen this before her latest collection came out because I did have the two previously existing shades in this formula, but I didn't wear them all that often. They just weren't colors that were like go-to everyday type of colors for me. And so I didn't have as much experience with the formula as I do now with these new shades that she's brought out. If I had to choose a perfect color, it would be Kitten Mischief. Today I'm wearing Rose Official. All these newer shades are just real go-tos for me. And I just think the formula is perfect because it can be applied very sheerly and just give a hint of color to your lips, and you can't even really tell that you're wearing anything on your lips when you do it that way, because it's not really very shiny in that way, and it just adds a little bit of plumpness and color to the lips. Or you can build it up like I have it today, and you can see there's a little bit more shine, but it still looks very natural. It almost just looks like you have nice, plump, moisturized lips. The colors just wear so beautifully. They last a really long time, which is not that common for this kind of a more satiny, sheer, Lucent type of formula. The pigmentation is actually pretty strong on these, but as I said, it's adjustable. And as I mentioned, they last so well and they wear down really beautifully as well. And they do leave a little hint of a stain on the lips. So even after several hours and eating and everything, I find that I still have just a touch of color on the lips that I really love, because sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to reapply your lipstick, or you even want that kind of effect of just a little faded sort of stain on the lips. So these are definitely my #1 choice for the lipstick with a perfect formula. And now she has them in what I consider perfect shades as well. There are just 2 questions left. First one is, which palette has the perfect shimmers? And I have to go with the Viseart Koi palette. Now, I think Viseart has different shimmer formulas, and in some of their older palettes, like the little 6-pan palettes, the shimmers I didn't find very impressive at all, but these ones are amazing. And I go to this palette often, especially if I want colorful shimmers. These, sort of similar to the lipsticks, are great because they can be used sheerly as sort of almost just like topper shades, or they can be built up a little bit and they'll have much more coverage and impact to the color of them. I love the colors in this palette as well, and the powders can be used wet or dry. They have so much dimension to them. A lot of these are duochrome type colors, and these are just the perfect shimmers to me. The last question is, which palette has the perfect color story? And I'm choosing a very new palette for this. I first saw one of these perfect makeup tag videos a couple of weeks ago, and this was the question that I was having the hardest time with: which palette has the perfect color story? I just couldn't think of one palette that I have that would have everything that I would want, at least for like a basic color story. But then the Wayne Goss Pearl palette came out and I tried it and I knew that this would be the perfect choice for the palette with the perfect color story. For me, this is perfect. It has your more neutral mattes with the brown and the gray. And the great thing about these two is that you can use one of them to give a more warm effect and you can use one of them to give a more cool effect, which I think is quite uncommon in palettes. And one of the best things about this palette is the pink shade to me, because for me to find a perfect palette, it kind of has to have this kind of a dusty rose, nude pink kind of shade in it, because I'm so drawn to that shade and I just love it. So I was so happy to find that shade here, and it's one that works really well on the eyes. I have that on my lower lash line today, and I've used the other colors on my upper lash line. And I love that it has this cream color too, because this is just so useful, like for blending things out or for putting down as your base to create a softer look. It's just a really nice bright cream shade. This shimmer here is probably the shade that I'm least excited about in the palette, but it's very useful as well. Yesterday I just wore this all over my lid and it was really nice. It just gave a little bit of color and warmth and shine to the eye without taking over anything. So it is actually a really beautiful and useful shade as well. And then the Celestial shade is just stunning. I have that on my lids today, and you can see I've used it actually dry over most of the lid, and then I used it wet right in here. It just has the most beautiful shimmer to it. I love that it's a more sheer formula, so it can kind of be added to any look that you would create with this and not take over it and completely change it, but it will just sort of enhance it and add that beautiful, almost wet-like shine to the eyes. So the Wayne Goss Pearl palette is definitely the palette with the perfect color story for me. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun doing this tag, thinking about everything in my collection and which makeup items are really the perfect items. Let me know what you think of my choices and maybe what your choices would be. I would love to hear those. And if you have any other comments or questions, I'd love to see those below. If you'd like to see more from me and you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would love for you to do so. Thanks so much again. Take care, and I will see you in my next video.